Hi, welcome back to Book Buzz with Jen and Payne, a podcast focused on romance books. New York Times bestselling author A.L. Jackson joins us today, and we're going to be talking about her books, her gorgeous covers, her latest release, Giving Me a Reason, and so much more. So sit back and relax. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thank you so much, A.L. Jackson, for being with us today. It's such an honor to have you on our podcast. And first, before we start off, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you here. I am such a huge fan. I remember the first book I picked up from you was Show Me the Way. And ever since then, I'm just like obsessed with your words, obsessed with your covers. It is. And that's something that we want to talk to you about later on, your gorgeous covers.
Awesome.
But ever since then, it's like, I can't get enough of your books. They're amazing. And so truly, thank you so much for being here with us.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me.
So what made you actually decide to publish your first book?
So I had been never really thought I was going to be a writer or had any aspirations of it. I loved to write poetry when I was in college. I've always loved words, but never thought that I could actually make a career out of it or write a full novel. And I had children young and just kind of had stopped reading. And then about 12 years ago now, I started reading a bunch again. And I just had that spark of the feeling to write words. But this time it just came to me in the form of a book. And so I just kind of wrote it as a hobby and never thought it would see the light of day. I actually wrote it at night without anybody knowing about it. And my best friend ended up reading it and she loved it. And she was like, you have to get this published. So it just kind of went from there.
Mm-hmm. Has it always been romance what you've written?
Yes. I love romance. I don't think I could write anything else. I love the suspense elements and I love supernatural. I love all those things, but at the heart of it, I think it would always be romance, whatever, even if I did a subgenre or something.
So when you started writing your books, because I know your books, I think they're pretty long, which I love because I love long books. So how do you make how do you plan your writing schedule? How much do you write a day? Because I know it's busy. You do social media, you do even book signings. Well, right now,
right.
Since with it, how do you make time to write a book with so much that goes on behind the scenes?
It's really difficult. I'm a really slow writer. I tend to fixate on every single line and want it to be perfect. And I go back and I layer so I really only write 2 books a year, 3 max. If I'm really lucky, if I'm feeling really inspired, because I do kind of get pulled in different directions. But I am really blessed that my daughter is actually my marketing manager. She works 40 hours a week for me. So she does a whole lot of the stuff in the background. So it takes a lot of that pressure off to be on all the time. And she does all the shipping for signed copies and, I sign them, but she packages and organizes and, she just does a lot of the work that, she frees up my time to be able to write more.
Yeah, because I've seen your store where you have all your books and your merch. Oh my gosh, they are all so pretty.
Thank you.
Take all my money because I want everything because they're so pretty.
I love all the stuff. I can't help it. I'm like, okay, we want that and we want that and we want that.
Your mugs for me, because I'm a full-on coffee holic. I look at your store, I'm like, I want that mug. I want that one. I want that one. I was like, everything's just so pretty.
Oh, thank you. That makes me so happy because I love having the store and I like stuff too. I love, to collect things that are important to me. And so, for book lovers, I want to offer something that's really fun and beautiful and something, some people can take to work if they want to put it on their desk, some things like that. I like for it to be really appealing. So I'm glad that you like it.
So from seeing all of your backlist, how much research do you put into a book? Because I know there are some characters, they work at different jobs or hold a different, how would you say it? Hold, I guess, a career or in a book. How much research do you put into a book when you write a book?
I think it just depends on if I know anything about that background myself. I try to, if there's a specialty, like if somebody's a physician or an attorney or anything like that, I do try to talk to, somebody that is in that same career and just find out like the details. And if I can get them to read what I've written just to make sure that it is consistent with reality, I try to do that. I don't spend, I don't do like, any historical or anything like that. So I don't really have to like research the times or like the way people might speak or anything like that. And I haven't really done anything out of the United States either. So I haven't had to spend a ton of time researching, but I would if that, I needed to. But I spend a lot of time like as far as I love to go like on Google Earth if I'm writing in a certain city or town and actually see like the way the streets are set up and where people park on that street and like what the storefronts look like, and just making sure that it's like, true to life if I am using a real place. But I do also love to kind of create my own little, I do fictional towns because I love that, to like create my own thing. And so that also like frees me up as well, that I can just kind of make it what I want it to be.
And I love that, because I think that's the reason I loved Show Me the Way so much, is because Rex was a construction worker. Mm-hmm. My dad is a construction worker. Like he has his own company. So I was like, I love that. Like I can relate so much. Like I think that's the reason that I got hooked so much in the story. I was like, because I can, like, I loved it. So
I love that. That's so great. And I like writing, people that, I write everything, kind of thing. I love to write small town where, the guys might not be rich and they just kind of have normal jobs. And then I love writing like, ridiculous things like, their old mob bosses kind of thing. So, and everything in between. So, but that one was like so fun. I love, Gingham Lakes because I could just picture that fictional town so clearly in my mind, and like what the vibe would feel like as you're walking on the sidewalks and that sort of thing. So it was really fun to do that.
Is it harder or easier to write? Like you say, you to create fictional towns. Is it harder to write a fictional town versus a town that you're looking and you're familiar with, or is it the other way around?
I think it's easier to write the fictional just because there's so many specific details when that you're writing, in a real city. So like what I'm writing right now, so like Give Me a Reason, that's coming out. It takes place in a fictional town, but then there's a lot of stuff that happens in LA. And so I had to do much more research on LA and like the areas I was writing about there than I had to do for the fictional town, since, I was just creating that in my mind. Where here I was having to go and make sure like this part of the town looks like this and that sort of thing. So I do think it's more freeing as a writer just to write my own.
And like, because I'm going to get a little ahead of myself. So for Give Me a Reason, I know he is sort of like this dark hero. So how much research, because going back to Show Me the Way, Rex was this light character, he wasn't this dark character. So how is it that you can, I guess what my question is it again harder to write a darker character or harder to write a lighter, not that crazy character, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So maybe this says something about me, but it's so much easier for me to write a dark character than a light character. So I'm actually writing his Trent's brother right now, Judd, who's so much lighter than him. And it's like so much harder because I like that kind of gritty feel of a guy. I love, I'm like an emo at heart. Like if you saw me in high school, I had like the black lipstick and wore all black clothes. And so like, I'm drawn to that. I love like, I listen to heavy metal. Like I love rockers, like that whole thing. So I love like getting into the vibe of that. So.
I love that. So now that you mentioned music, when you're writing, because me and Payne were talking about this yesterday, like, do you listen when you're writing and you're deep into the writing, do you have music playing in the background? Because I know Ping is the type of person who's like, she says she likes silence. I'm like, I have to have something in the background. Like, how do you do that when you're writing?
So I really cannot listen to like actual music with lyrics when I'm writing, because like the words will mess me up. Like if I'm listening to like Screamo and I can't understand what they're saying, like I can listen to that. So I have like a playlist that's like instrumental rock that I listen to when I'm writing. So I really like that, or else I'll actually put on a noisemaker. Like I have to have like a little buzz of something, but I can't do, like I like sound there, but I can't have words distracting me, if that makes sense. So I usually listen to like my playlist as I'm like, popping on my computer in the morning and answering messages, just kind of getting in the vibe of whatever I'm writing. Mm-hmm. And then I'll switch to the instrumental after that.
Wow. I don't, I don't ever picture you as listening to rock music. Because from reading your books, it does not give me a rock. I don't know, but that's interesting, huh?
Yes, I like my boys, screaming and tattooed.
I love that.
So from all of your books that you've written, what's the hardest part about writing, and what do you love most about it?
So it's really difficult for me to write. Like it is like a labor of love every single time I write a book. I don't ever sit down and like the words just flow out. It's like, I kind of go back and forth, and so the whole process is really hard for me. I would say the hardest is definitely getting started and hearing new voices in my head. So like once I move on from one book to the next, I usually have to like start 3 or 4 versions of it before I like finally go, oh, okay, this is like who they are. So it takes me some time just to kind of get in the rhythm of what that book's going to be. My favorite part is actually editing. I love editing because by the time I get my first draft done, that's when finally like all the pieces make sense to me. And then I get to go through and like weave everything together. I know so many authors hate editing, and I used to when I first started, because it felt like, like I almost felt defensive of my work, and I'd get it back from the editor, like, how can she say that, And now I'm like, yes, like, let's take these, I've learned like what advice I want to take and what I don't want to use. And then I can just go and like rock through it. And it just feels like everything's coming together the way I envision. So I love that, like racing to the completion.
And how long does it take you to write a book?
About 4 to 5 months, typically.
4 to 5 months.
Does
that count like editing?
Yeah, that's complete, just like through every version and everything.
Well, your books are long, like I said.
They're so long, right? If I did them in half, it's like, because I know a lot of people that will write, a 60,000 word book is considered full length, but mine are usually about 120. So really, I'm writing 2 books in one, but like they're too much of like a slow burn to make them any. And I'm wordy. If you read my books, you're gonna like get really into the characters and all that sort of thing. So it comes out that way. And I'm not a plotter. I don't plot at all, but they just somehow all kind of turn out that long. Like I can kind of tell them like, oh, this is like pacing for whatever reason. Like it just naturally paces itself out that way.
And so I know with this series, the new series are starting, I know Give Me a Reason was the first book. So when you start a series, do you plot before starting the series how many books are going to be in that series? Or is that something that comes along as you're writing each book in the series?
I kind of have an idea now. I used to not, but like as I've gone, I kind of like, when I wrote Bleeding Stars, I don't know if you read, that's like Rockstar Romances. It's 6 books long. And when I first started that, I was actually going to that was like when the trilogies were like really popular. So I was going to write A Stone in the Sea as like a 3-book trilogy for just that one couple, and hadn't thought I was going to write anything else. But as soon as I started writing it and I like knew all the rest of the band members, like I was like, oh, every single one of these guys needs their own book. And so I think that's when I learned, like, I was like, oh, like, yes, like I'm going to write all these people. So then when I went on and wrote the Fight For Me series with Show Me the Way, I knew like I was definitely going to write those 3 friends. Like it was for their stories. But then I kind of added on later. So I was like, oh, I really loved Evan. So I wrote Hold On to Hope. And so the same for this series. It was only supposed to be 3 books, but everybody loves, I don't know if you guys have read the arc yet, but the best friend in the story, her name's Tessa, and people are like messaging me nonstop. Does Tessa get a story? Does Tessa get a story? Yes. So I was like, okay, guys, Tessa's going to get a story. So I just titled it and I'm ready to put it on Goodreads. So it'll be a 4-book series now.
I am so excited because I loved her. And
she's so funny.
Yes. And it's funny because Payne yesterday was like, I really hope Judd gets a book. She's like, I'm going to ask her. And you just said you were writing it. I'm like, oh, I love him.
Yeah. Judd and Logan also get their books. And I've been like I'm pretty excited. I love writing brothers. I love writing families and like just that like devotion and loyalty, because family is obviously the most important to me. And I just love that feeling of, these people coming together and like fighting for each other with everything they have, no matter the cost.
And I do have to say, like, looking back at all the books I read from you, I love when you write little kids. When you did Show Me the Way, I was so excited when Frankie got her own book. I remember I signed up for that book to do the to read an arc like the fastest I've ever signed up for anything because
Oh my gosh, I love
loved
it.
her. Like I
She was
loved her and
so
Show Me the
fun.
Way.
I love writing kids. I think that I feel like, I write heavy stories, so I like writing kids into it because, like, to me, like, kids are the hope of the future, and like, your ultimate, what you're truly fighting for. That's also like that family thing, coming together, and like you have this innocent little person that, and obviously, like, my kids and my stories are really intrinsic to the story. I mean, they are in so many of the scenes, and they're not just like a side character. They're so involved in the story, and I just love that. It just feels so important to me. Like, children are like the most important thing in the world, right? So I like having them a part of the story.
Well, I love reading books that have little kids, so I'm always so excited to read yours. So it's like, oh, I love kids. I love her kids.
Thank you.
and
It needs a
and
little
talking,
lightness in there. They're always like the little light at the end of the tunnel kind of thing, right?
Yes. And talking about Frankie, can I just say I loved Hold on Hope.
Oh, awesome.
And I love it because I love how you wrote Evan, because Evan was my first book where I read where a hero was death. So for me, it was a journey reading that book. So for you, how was it writing a character that battles through that
that
situation?
book was really difficult to write because, there were, the language, like, how do you, and I did take some liberties. I had, so both of my boys had done sign language as their second language in high school. Mm-hmm. And so their teacher is a personal friend. And so she kind of helped me along with that, with like some of this American Sign Language, but I did have to take some liberties, the way that it was written within the book, because the way that, you speak in American Sign Language, everything's different. Like, it wouldn't make sense in a book. So I had to do research and like figure out, how to keep it like as genuine as I could, but also allow the reader to be able to enjoy the book without not being able to understand like what was happening there. And so that book probably was the most research I've ever done. That one and Follow Me Back, because of Evan's condition with his heart defect that caused, that the deformity that he has, that he was born with. So I had to like go in and like research all of that whole disorder and how it affects children and like what they grow into and all that sort of thing. So those two books are like actually the most research I've ever had to put into something.
How hard was that putting into
I think it was difficult, but like, I feel like I tried to make it not, I read about the condition. It's a genetic defect, and it's something that, I wanted to make sure it was something that was actually like a real defect that can affect, children. And so I read about it and I kind of learned about it and like what the treatments are and like life expectancy. And I think the hardest thing about, that character was that, he's not going to live to be 80 years old. So writing around those boundaries, but still like giving that hope that like he's still living his life. And like, that's really what Hold On to Hope was about, was him like accepting like, hey, I still have these years, so I need to live them to my fullest kind of thing. So I think it was more like sinking into the character. I didn't want it to be like a medical manual. I didn't want to give all those details about, his condition or anything like that. I wanted, it to be a part of the story, but that wasn't him, so it was more like what I would have imagined his feelings would be like dealing with that. So just, creating a character that, spoke to me, that I felt, that's the way that his character came out to me and the things that he would be feeling. And of course, I don't know. I don't, suffer from that condition. So I don't know. I hope that it's, I got a lot of messages from different people that, were deaf or had, children that were deaf that, just were really, like you said, they had not read other stories like that. And they were really thankful that I kind of gave that a voice. And so hopefully I did a good job on it. Like, I do my best I possibly can. I pour myself into the characters, and that was just the character that I saw and what I thought he would be struggling with.
I loved it. I loved him, and I love Frankie. So I feel that you do so well. Like, for me, I loved Frankie when I read her in Show Me the Way. So I was like, you picked the hero for her that was meant for her. So I loved her. Like I said, I love your kids. I was very excited to read that one. That's one of my all-time favorite books of yours.
Oh, and thank you.
Going on to talking about your books, I know we mentioned earlier, we're obsessed with your covers. Like, I cannot get enough of your covers. When you released the cover for Give Me a Reason, I was like, oh my gosh, like that cover is hands down the most gorgeous cover of the year. Like it is beautiful. How do you pick your covers? Like how do you, because I literally, me and Ping were, like I said, me and Ping were talking about it. We think you're like one of the authors that has like the best covers out there.
Thank you. That means so much to me because I am so picky, you guys. Like I am like, it's hard because I see these characters in my mind and they're real to me, but then I go to like search for an image and I'm like, wait, this person doesn't actually exist. So in real life form, what does he look like? So, it can be really difficult. And it's like a lot of stress. I always feel like I'm searching and searching for images that are right. And then it feels impossible. And then somehow I like stumble upon the perfect one. So like, for Give Me a Reason, I could not find anybody that like reflected who that Trent was. And I pictured him a little bit different than like what I ended up with. But like, once I got to this place and I found this model, I was like, oh, yes, like this will totally work. And so I actually set up a shoot specifically for it because I knew I wanted it to be like that they were looking at each other. I didn't want them looking at the camera. I wanted them like face to face, kind of clinging to each other. I knew what vibe I wanted. So I was able to tell the photographer, hey, I want it to look like this. And, I wanted the girl like to look a little bit innocent, but like I wanted it just to have that passion about it. And so it turned out so good. I was so happy.
Oh, it's gorgeous. It's all right. There's something about your covers that are so intriguing. They're so either, they're sexy, they're mysterious, but I don't know. I want to have all of them just facing my bookshelf, like out because they're so pretty.
I love it. Good. And that's my goal. I want it to be like, they're emotional. Like that's always what I'm looking for is an emotional shot. Like, I just want to feel it. Like I want the couple like so into each other. Like you can just feel it burning off the cover,
It like Falling Into You. That's another cover of yours that I am obsessed with.
That was actually an engagement shoot.
Really?
They were actually a real life couple, and that's why it's like so emotional.
I love it even more now.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. Like I literally just took a chance and I messaged the photographer and I was like, is there any way these two would want, and they did. And I was like, so thankful. And it's so passionate. That cover's so passionate.
Yes. And do you do your covers while or after you finish your book or before you start writing your book? Because I know we had authors where they do covers before they even start writing the books, or some that don't worry about the covers until after they finish the book.
I do mine after, just because I like to create my characters and then find something that works for the characters rather than like, this is what the characters have to look like, and then I'm writing based on that. So I feel like it gives me more of like a more creative power to do it that way. And sometimes it's hard because then I'm like really struggling to find the perfect image, but I feel like doing it that way is kind of what sets the covers apart. Like it's just because I'm looking for a certain vibe or like a feeling that I got writing a certain scene or, whatever it may be. So I think it just works out better for my style.
Well, it fits, like the vibe of the cover fits the story, I think that's the reason I love them so much, because it's like it goes together so well.
That's what I'm going for that all the time. So I'm glad that you feel that when you look at them.
So going back a little bit of, I'm just curious because there are some authors who do not, who will look at reviews when the first book first released, and some will not read reviews at all, besides getting reviews from their art team. Do you actually read reviews from your books, or you just like, it's out there, it's okay?
I do not read negative reviews. I hate when I find one. I know they're going to be there, and people are completely, I want reviewers to be able to say what they really feel, but I don't want to read it because it'll affect me when I'm writing the next story, because my stories aren't for everybody. I have a really lyrical style, and usually my negative reviews are about that. They're like, what the hell was this, like poetry for 100,000 words kind of thing, and so I don't want that to like filter into my consciousness when I'm writing. So I kind of just like I just put that aside, and I'm writing for the people that love my stories and not for the ones that don't. So I don't ever want to change myself because I'm like, oh my God, like somebody didn't like that, so maybe I need to fit. I'm like, no, because then it takes away from the genuineness of the story when I'm doing that. And sure, there's things I had to learn along the way and correct and that sort of thing. But I feel like where I am now, I try not to, I kind of defined what I write, and I don't want to like change that. But I definitely read, if the bloggers message me, where they've read an arc and they give me a link or whatever, I absolutely read those. So I really love to, to like experience through them, but I do try to stay away from like Goodreads or, looking at the 1 stars on Amazon.
And do you, because I know you write a lot of second chance, enemies to lovers, or, friends to lovers. What is your favorite trope to write, and what trope you haven't written yet that you want to write?
I love writing single dads because it's just so cute to me. I love like a man with a baby that he's like so protective of. Love it. So that's my favorite, I would say. I love writing enemies to lovers because I like that little, like, the tension that it creates, kind of the banter back and forth, like, with Trent and Eden, like that instant, like clashing of personalities that they had, that's so fun to me to like kind of get the story started and then seeing them grow together to really, realize how much that they like each other and then they fall in love kind of thing. What trope have I not written? I feel like I've written every trope there is. No, I probably haven't, but I actually, and it's not a trope, I would love to write a paranormal romance sometime. I love like the feeling of like, I don't know, I like the dark vibe. So it'd be really cool to do like a human and whatever kind of thing. I don't think I do, like, I probably would make something up, like some sort of whatever that's, but I love paranormal romance. I love reading it. It's kind of what sparked my love for reading again. And I kind of devoured a ton of them. And there's a couple, like I actually started one about 7 years ago that I would love to take it back out and finish, but it just kind of didn't feel like the right time in the market to do that. You don't have all these rules like you have to stick to when you're writing paranormal or fantasy. It's just like, and I'm reading a Nordic mythology from Amy Harmon right now. And oh my gosh, I love it so much. And it's just like, I don't know, there's just all these other things happening that are so impossible that I love it. It's so fun to get into that.
I've seen from your backlist, all of your books, who is your favorite couple?
Well, it was, well, for forever and ever, it was Lyric and Tamar from Where Lightning Strikes. I love Lyric. And again, like he's like that dark, brooding guy. But I think Trent might have taken over his #1 spot, which I feel kind of guilty to say. And I still love Lyric. Like they are like neck and neck. But Trent, there was just something about him. Like he was just so... he's like the first actual bad guy I wrote, or he'd been, he wasn't currently, but like, he's the first character that I wrote that like was truly like had done horrible things in his past. And so I loved being able to write that redemption.
I love that too. So,
so diving into Give Me a Reason, which I got my paperback yesterday. Thank you. It's so pretty. I can't wait to put it on my shelf. So thank you. So I do have to ask, because you just said, Give Me a Reason. It's different. I feel that it's different than what you've written so far, because Trent, it's darker. He is, he's done very darker stuff in his life and everything. So how was it? How did you come up with that whole plot? How did you come up with his story and then her story too, because she's very 100% opposite of what he is.
Right.
So how was it coming up with that plot and creating this character who is dark? He keeps himself and he has a very dark past.
Right. I knew that I wanted to write like a really opposites attract, like devil and angel type of story. And I had been intending to, I don't know if you guys read the Falling Stars series, but in like Kiss the Stars, we know that Leif was like a part of an MC back in the day before he like moves away and all that kind of stuff. And so I had all these intentions of writing a spinoff series that was about that MC. And I still probably will, but I started to write it and I read a bunch of MCs just to like get in the vibe of it. And I was like, I didn't want to go that dark. And so I think that's where it kind of sparked that I was like, okay, I'm going to do this my way, which is kind of how I usually do it. I kind of like do a trope and then I twist it. So it's never like, when I say I write rock star romances, like they're different than most rock star romances. So I kind of did it the same way, that I was like, okay, I want to write an MC, but I want to write it about like the impact, the true impact of that. Like, what is the aftermath of living that lifestyle kind of thing? And so that's kind of how Trent's character was born. And I was like, okay, so like, what is his opposite? Like, what is she going to be like? She's a Sunday school teacher and a kindergarten teacher and like this sweet thing. And he's this, he considers himself a devil kind of thing. And so I wanted to see like when you put those two characters together, like what happens.
So I loved it. It was very, like I said, different. It was because for me, yes, you've written darker heroes, but I've never written anything of yours that, because he's very, like you said, he considers himself like the devil and stuff because of the stuff he's done. But I personally love the twist that you threw in there. I was like, I was not expecting that. But I did love, there were some scenes, especially with his son, that had me laughing. Where like
Gage was like that light place, and I wanted it. Like I knew that the subject matter was so heavy that I had to have some light scenes in there that actually would be, and I'm not really a funny person. Like my kids say that I am like the least funny, like my children are hysterical. And like, I sit there and go like, oh my God, like, how are they so funny? Like the things that come out of their mouths, but like, that is not naturally me. I'm not like joking around and like, I'm over here in the corner. They're all laughing. No, I'm just kidding. It's not that bad. But for whatever reason, like that was able to come out. Like I was able to create a couple of those things that I like when my daughter and I like do the very last listen through before the book goes to narration and gets formatted and everything. And this was her favorite book that I've written. So she's kind of like my last ears and eyes, and she's really good. She's not a romance reader. So she's able to like trim things if I get too, like, she's so good at like picking out little things to like change and stuff. She was so into the story, we didn't change anything, but she was literally like cracking up on some of those scenes. Yes. She was like, I don't even know where this came from out of you. I was like, I don't even know. Gage is adorable. He's real somewhere. And I just wrote what he said.
Yeah. There is this scene where he comes out of his car when he's picking him up from school. And she's like, you have to wait in your car. I was like cracking up. I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I love him so much.
That's probably my favorite scene of the whole book. Like I was just dying laughing. Yeah. I just this little boy, like, like hanging out, he's like such a little cutie pie, like trying to show off his new shoes. And she's like horrified when she realizes that, his dad's coming away. So that was really fun. And I like that, they're dark and light against each other, but then it was also like this kind of fun banter that it created between the two of them. So.
And it's like you said, adding a kid in a book always makes a difference, because while this book was very dark, I feel that he brought out some little light and humor into it, because he was always coming out in the most random places and would, they'll be talking about something serious and he would come up with very funny situations. And I'm just like, oh my God, I can't stop laughing.
Yeah, I love it. That makes me so happy. Yeah, because I wanted it that way, because they're like, they'd be talking and he would take it as completely something else, like, and then he'd be like, just like chatting away. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I fell so in love with him. Like he was probably the funnest character I've ever written.
Like I was telling Jen the other day, I seriously think I'm not sure about anyone else, but I totally teared up while reading the book. I do not like her sister at all, but her letter, when she wrote the last letter to Eden, oh my gosh, I literally teared up. I was like, oh my gosh, why am I feeling pity to this girl when she totally ruined everyone's lives? I feel so bad for her. I was like, oh my gosh.
Know.
I totally bawled my eyes out. And then, like Jan mentioned, that twist, oh my gosh, totally jaw-dropping twist. I was not expecting it. Everything about the book was perfection. I loved everything about it.
Thank you so much.
Everything, the plot, to how, like every side character have a meaning, have a meaning, or how to serve the book as a whole. And everything is just I'm speechless. I'm speechless.
You're making me. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna tear up over here. But and I'm glad you said that about the sister, because I hated her writing her, and but I was like, and the whole this whole series is called Redemption Hills, and it's about like, of course, like the redemption was mainly for Trent, but like at the same time there were like the sister, it was just important for the sister, I feel like. And so I without giving a spoiler, that's a hard one to talk about, but like I feel like her fate was already sealed, but then I wanted her to have like redemption before then.
And I will agree with what Pink said. I feel that because I've read some books where, the side characters are just side characters. You don't really feel anything for, like, well, you don't get to attach to them. For me, I feel like every side character in the story had a meaning to what their lives. So I love the side characters. Like his brother, I loved him.
Awesome.
So it feels that the story, to me, it was everything was the way it was supposed to be. Yeah, I cried. Yeah, I was mad at some parts, but it felt
but it wouldn't be a book if you didn't feel those things, right?
Yes.
Like you got to go like a roller coaster. And I loved her dad too. Like normally, like, parents aren't that like important as characters, but like he just had this, like, there was just encouragement about him. You know what I mean? Like every time he came on the scene, I was like smiling, like, man, I wish my dad was that awesome. My dad was a dick, but
I know you did mention that his brother's getting a book and the friend too. Do you know who else is getting a book in the series?
So all three brothers will get books. Mm-hmm. So Judd's book is Say It's Forever, and Logan's is Never Look Back. And then Tessa will get a book as well. But I think, okay, so I don't want to back myself into a corner, because I am totally the type of person that will start writing a character and then be like, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to start over. But I think her story is going to be with Milo. So he's one of the bouncers, but he was just like that quiet, like such a nice guy. You don't know anything about him. He was a side character that was just there. But I was like, there's something about that guy that I like, as he's like, bye, good night, little dove kind of thing. And I'm like, I think there's something there. So I'm hoping to write a story with the two of them.
Oh, the quiet ones are always the most interesting.
Yes.
I know you mentioned, the brothers are having a series and the friend, but what else? Are you going to be working on any other series, or are you just focusing on this series?
I only write one series, one book at a time. I am trying to write the little serial for my newsletter. If people are subscribed, I'm doing like a little free story, and it's like a choose your own happily ever after. So after each chapter, you get to pick what happens next, and it's just going to be kind of short and fun. But I had to put it on hold because I couldn't like finish this other story and write that at the same time. So like I'm going to be onto that in between. So as soon as this Give Me a Reason's out, I'm going to pick that back up again. And then after that, I'm either going to write, I am going to go back into the rockstar world, and everybody wants A Riot of Roses, which you see actually in Give Me, I always like weave all the people in. So A Riot of Roses, so they'll either get their story, and I think it's going to be them first, and then eventually I'm going to go back and do a second generation for Bleeding Stars. So we'll get Lyric's son Brendan, and
I love that,
and Callie, and all the kids, Penny, and all of them. So it should be really fun.
So how many releases are you planning for this year? Are you doing another for this year, or are you waiting until 2022?
Judd's story will not come out until next year, but early next year. I'm like halfway finished writing it right now.
Oh, the suspense.
His is hard because he's kind of dark, but he's light at the same time.
I'm so excited for him.
Really glowing, so
I'm so excited for his book, because what like Ping was saying, it's like he's very interesting. You can say.
Yes, there's something there, right? That's like,
yes,
and they all grew up in that same house, right? So like, how did all these events affect each of them? It seems like they're all so different. Like Trent's like, so brooding and messed up over it, but like such a protector. And Judd's kind of like, hey, we need to move on and like we're here for each other. And Logan's like this wild card, right? So figuring out like how each of them are after, you know, what they went through.
Well, I'm so excited. And this book, I know everybody's going to love it. We loved it. And thank you so much for the paperback and for the art and for doing this interview with us. We're so excited for everybody to meet Trent. He is this dark hero who everybody's going to love. And just happy release day to you also.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited.
Yes. And we can't wait for all the books that you're writing.
Thank you both so much for having me on. All right. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much, A.L. Jackson, for joining us today. It was such an honor and I had the best time. Like we mentioned earlier, I love her books. I love her book covers. I literally feel that her book covers are some of the best one out there. They give me all the feels. Like I literally want to buy them and just put them on my shelf, literally facing out. So make sure everyone Give Me a Reason. It is amazing. It is different. It is darker than what you're used to her writing, but it is phenomenal. It's now available, so make sure you pick it up. It is a must read. You don't want to miss it. I loved it. Plus, guys, the cover itself should tell you guys to pick it up. It is gorgeous. So like I said, make sure you pick it up. It is amazing. And we hope you guys enjoyed the interview. We enjoyed it so much. Like, it is a dream to have her on here with us. So make sure you're following her on Instagram, join her Facebook readers group. We are going to attach the link to our YouTube video. If you're not listening on YouTube, head over to Instagram and we'll add the link there. And if you have any questions for us, just send us a message on Instagram. Our handle is @BookBuzzPodcast, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.